my concept of how you live a full life was based on a Western life. That is, there's a city that's vibrant and new and always turning itself over and always bringing in new immigrants and always having new restaurants and always having new people. But very close to the city edge is nature. Wild nature, not cosmetic nature, but something real and authentic that looks maybe as it did several thousand years ago. And I thought there's nothing in between. There's city and there's wild. Nothing could bridge the two. But in Italy, I had a rather profound epiphany, at least profound for me. It was about how people could live in an ancient place, how you could live well and still be close to nature and also live near a large urban area. And that's the challenge you face here in South Bay. It's the challenge we face in my home in Puget Sound. It's the challenge we face in all of these new Western cities, and they are new. I mean, they're created in an eye blink compared to almost any other city in the world. How do we live close to nature and yet in these expanding urban places? We live just outside of Florence, about 12 miles from Florence, and Florence at one time was the third largest city in Europe. It rivaled Paris, it rivaled London. Ancient city, and of course it was the vibrant, beating, beautiful heart of the Renaissance, which our Florentine friends all complain that it has now become a Renaissance Disneyland, and you can't change anything that isn't 500 years old. On Sundays, in the country where we live, we would go for these long walks, and we would be among these gnarly ancient vines, these gnarly ancient olive trees, and the occasional gnarly ancient landowner with a very mean dog. Try to imagine, I guess, John McCain speaking Italian. Ragazzi, get off my lawn. So I would wonder during these passeggiatas at what footprints had passed before me on this old ground, not just Romans, but Etruscans. I mean, I came from a city, Seattle, that now has a metro area of 3 million people, but it's 150 years old. Again, it's an eye blink in time. And here people had lived, if you go back to the Etruscans, at least 3,000 years. And this was the surprise. The place wasn't trashed. It still looked like those Botticelli paintings when you look and you see the landscape behind the Madonna. We went for our runs among the chestnut trees in the valleys there, and there were wild boar, there were deer, there were flowers, and there was a stream. It seemed to me that it was wild in this ancient inhabited area. So I asked my Italian friends, how did you pull this miracle off? What's the secret sauce? What did you do here? Why is there no ugly sprawl? Why are there no giant warehouse stores, no big boxes, no worker-style cement block housing complexes, no freeways through the countryside? Is it the law? Are there strict regulations? And they'd laugh and say, no, of course not. In Italy, everyone's a scofflaw. Again, I kept posing this question almost like a parlor game. The thing I heard time and again was it's culture, it's values. It's driven into the community from one generation to the next. If you live in the city, nature has importance to you, to your everyday life. You need this land for your vino, and people would show up at our winemaker with their tiny little cinquecentos the size of a golf cart, and they would have these 50-gallon things that the guy would fill up with the Chianti, and they'd be on their way. So you needed that for your wine. You needed that for your olive oil. You needed it for your Sunday passeggiata, for your Sunday walk. Your history as a Tuscan is tied up in these landscapes, in this background. It's all part of your shared heritage. That's what I heard. It's what makes you whole. You essentially have an ownership stake in this land.